Hello everyone, this is R.S. Miller at the endtimenews.org and today is March 1st, 2014. This is your Fast Track Report. Russia attacks Ukraine army post. According to a Debka file report, Russia attacks Ukraine army post in Crimea. As Moscow's master plan for Ukraine continued to unfold, Russian forces Saturday, March 1st, staged their first attack on a Ukraine military installation in Crimea, while completing their takeover of the region and its severance from Ukraine. Interfax reported from a Ukrainian source that 20 soldiers had entered an anti-aircraft missile command post in western Crimea, and that negotiations rather than a clash were underway. Another report states that an additional 2,000 Russian troops were being airlifted into the Crimean area. These troops are reportedly part of the Russian Rapid Intervention Force. It is also being reported that 150,000 Russian troops are on alert, ready to jump into action should the order be given. Yesterday, on February 28th, President Obama warned Russia that there would be costs for any military intervention. He said, "Over the last several days, the United States has been responding to events as they unfold in Ukraine. Throughout this crisis, we have been very clear about one fundamental principle. The Ukrainian people deserve the opportunity to determine their own future. Together with our European allies, we have urged an end to the violence and encouraged Ukrainians to pursue a course in which they stabilize their country, forge a broad-based government, and move to elections this spring. I also spoke several days ago with President Putin, and my administration has been in daily communication with Russian officials, and we've made clear that they can be part of an international community's effort to support the stability and success of a united Ukraine going forward, which is not only in the interest of the people of Ukraine and the international community, but also in Russia's interest. However, we are now deeply concerned by reports of military movements taken by the Russian Federation inside of Ukraine. Russia has a historic relationship with Ukraine, including cultural and economic ties, and a military facility in Crimea. But any violations of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity would be deeply destabilizing, which is not in the interest of Ukraine, Russia, or Europe. It would represent a profound interference in matters that must be determined by the Ukrainian people. It would be a clear violation of Russia's commitment to respect the independence and sovereignty and borders of Ukraine and of international laws. And just days after the world came to Russia for the Olympic Games, it would invite the condemnation of nations from around the world, and indeed the United States will stand with the international community in affirming that there will be a cost for any military intervention in Ukraine. With each passing day, we find ourselves inching ever closer to an all-out thermonuclear war with Russia. Back in the summer of 2012, we were standing at the precipice of nuclear war over the Syrian conflict and Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons, neither of which has been resolved and are both still at crisis levels and could ignite at any moment. Add to the mix the escalating Ukrainian crisis, with Russia on one side and the US and NATO on the other, and it becomes the perfect recipe for war. It's not too difficult to imagine how the war of Ezekiel 38 and 39, the Gog-Magog war, could begin from the current situation in the Ukraine. If in fact a shooting war starts between NATO allies and Russia, then it is very likely to spread far beyond the confines of the immediate geographical area. In a time of war, the Russians could well decide to take advantage of the opportunity and secure their interest in the Middle East, that is, Iran and Syria. However, they are also well aware that any military movement by Russia in the Middle East would not only face opposition from the US and its allies, but would also face a nuclear-armed Israel. With that in mind, the Russian leadership knows that in order to secure the Middle East, they would have to control or conquer Israel. In Ezekiel 38, starting in verse 3, it says, "And say, Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. I will turn you around, put hooks into your jaws, and lead you out, with all of your army, horses, and horsemen, all splendidly clothed, a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, which is Iran, Ethiopia, and Libya are with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all its troops, the house of Togarmah from the far north, and all its troops. Many peoples are with you. Prepare yourself and be ready, you and all your companies that are gathered about you, and be a guard for them. After many days you will be visited. In the latter years you will come into the land of those brought back from the sword, and gathered from many people on the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate." During an era of diplomacy, it doesn't make sense for Russia to take military action against Israel. But if a war with the West begins, diplomacy goes out the window. Remember what Hillary Clinton said while she was still in office: "Never waste a good crisis." Now, I am certain that she is not the only political figure who feels that way. Friends, I don't know whether or not the current Ukrainian crisis will lead us into World War III. Neither do I know whether or not Ezekiel 38 and 39 will be fulfilled at this time. But what I do know is that we are living in the last days, and I am absolutely convinced that all of Bible prophecy up to the Battle of Armageddon and the return of Jesus Christ will all take place within our lifetime, and more precisely, within the next several years. So that brings us to an all-important question. Are you saved? If you follow the link in the box below and pray the prayer of salvation with a sincere heart, you will be saved. May God bless you.